Good.
You there, Frank? Saw you
Yes,
on
sir.
mute real quick.
Go ahead.
All right. So question number one: anything that begins to exist requires a cause. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I agree.
You agree. Okay. The universe, which consists of time, space, and matter, began to exist. Would you agree or disagree?
I agree.
Okay. The cause of the
Can you
universe.
hear me? I'm sorry. I was cutting out. Go ahead.
Okay. The cause of the universe needs to be outside of time, space, and matter. Would you agree or disagree?
I would agree.
Okay. So what would that cause be?
I'm not sure. I'm a pantheist, so I believe that it could be something more fundamental, like energy. But I'm not sure.
Well,
So that's
does
my
energy exist inside of our universe?
yeah. But there could be a form of energy that exists outside the universe.
And so how would that energy order itself?
What do you mean? Order itself?
Well, the energy would need to order itself in order to create something. So I don't know how would energy. So would that energy be eternal?
Yes.
So how does that energy not become to a state of less used energy?
Well, it could be something that winds it up and then it slowly gets wound down.
What would wind it up?
That I'm not sure. I'm still having issues figuring that out. But I mean, science is, I mean, slowly figuring it out. So
Well, how can science test something that is outside of our time, space, and matter?
science uses models that are in our time, space, and matter. Like it uses like science uses physics that we know of to
Sure.
understand things that are outside that could be outside of the universe. So they hypothesize what could be going on outside of time, space, and matter, but it
What?
uses the physics that we already know.
Sure, but you wouldn't be able to use the science. So would you say that your position is based on the scientific method?
Yeah, it pretty much yes.
Okay. So how did you determine that there can be no God?
I didn't determine that there cannot be a God.
I
I
can't I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if there's a God or not. Like I can't determine if there's a God or not. If you were to ask me, do I believe in God? I would say I'm not sure because I haven't ruled God out entirely.
Sure.
Um,
Well,
so
that
I'm kind of agnostic about that.
so you can't be agnostic when it comes to God because God is either the ultimate source of everything or he is not. So there's no middle ground. So that's why I'm asking how did you determine that there is no God? Because if you determined that there is a God, then that would be your ultimate source.
Right.
So
Well,
so how did you determine that there is no God?
I guess I haven't determined that there isn't a God. I mean, I can't tell you how there is no God. I don't think that there's a logical answer to that question because I would have to know everything, and I obviously don't. So the only way I would know that there isn't a God is if I was omniscient myself. So I would say I'm agnostic. I know you probably don't like accept that answer, but
No, that's fine.
that's the closest I guess I've come to determine that there is no God. Now, I do go for the simpler answer of maybe something that isn't a mind is fundamental. Even though, as a pantheist, I do believe that consciousness is fundamental to a certain degree. So that's just my answer.
So what would the minimal attributes of a God need to be?
Um, in order
Would
for me
would
to
he
believe,
huh?
in order for me to believe,
Yeah, would he have to be all knowing? Well, no, just a God in general. Would a God be all knowing?
yeah, a God would be all knowing. What is it? Omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent,
Sure. So
etc.
you would agree with those things.
I would definitely agree with the definition of God, whether it's a deist God or a Christian God or a Muslim God. It really wouldn't matter.
Sure. If there is a God, then would you say that God would be obligated to reveal himself?
Not necessarily.
How so?
Well, it could be like a deist God that doesn't reveal itself.
But if that God would be the foundation of everything, then that God would be obligated to reveal himself in everything. Everything would point to that God.
Why is that?
Because that would be consistent with God. If a God is all powerful, all knowing, all present, if it, then that God would be revealed in those attributes.
Yeah, but God doesn't necessarily need to reveal anything to us. I mean, maybe the God doesn't want to reveal anything to us and doesn't want us to know anything about him.
How would that follow? How would you avoid being able to know this God if this God is all knowing, if this God is the foundation of all knowledge?
Well, what I'm trying to say is that I don't see the necessity in this God revealing itself to us. If
How
it,
did you determine that?
because a deist God could exist that doesn't want to reveal itself to us, so it's a
No, but how
possibility.
did you determine? Because you appealed to the scientific method. So how
Right.
did you determine? How did you determine that without contradicting yourself? What did you did you like do a test
No,
that can be observed and falsified and repeated? Can you?
I didn't test it. I'm just throwing out possibilities.
That's fine. But if you appeal to the scientific method, then I just want to see if you meet your own standard. You said that your standard was the scientific method, and so now you're making a lot of claims that do not follow. So I'm just wondering how can you fix that?
Well, I can't test God. I mean, that's the main problem. I can't give you a scientific test to determine the only test I guess I could give you is like if I prayed God and he did something for me, I guess in that way I could test if God exists, but
But how
I
well how did you determine that there is no God? That was my original
like
question.
I said, I can't tell you how God does not exist. I don't know that I can't answer that question. I don't think any atheist can answer that question because
You
logic
said you're an agnostic.
right, I'm saying I'm agnostic to God in general.
Yeah, I'm not
Right.
asking about any atheist, but if you're appealing to the scientific method, then I want to know how you determined that there is no God.
Well, the only answer I can give to that is I've gone for the simpler answer. So maybe if I were to put God
So science doesn't work then. So that doesn't work maybe.
if by science you mean like
The
testing
science.
both
I'm sorry.
theories, like
I'm sorry.
putting both theories on on the board and saying which theory in is less has less explanation. I think it's called Occam's razor.
Sure.
And yeah, so you could and you determine through that test whether which answer is less difficult or not difficult. How do I explain less?
I'm familiar with Occam's razor.
Yeah, like
But
it's
would you?
less.
But
Right.
that's
Go ahead.
fine. But we already agreed that a God would have at least minimal attributes, and
Right.
some of
Yeah.
those attributes are maximally great. So God's evidence would be everywhere. And so if you were to say that there is no God, then you have already made a decision. And so if you've already made a decision, I would like to know what you based that decision on.
See,
And if
but
you
I
appeal
can't.
to the scientific method, then I want to know how did you test that, or what did you do? Did you mix chemicals together to come to that conclusion?
Of
How
course,
did
I
you
like I
figure that
said,
out?
I can't. I maybe I don't know if God can be tested. That's the logical answer I can give you. I mean, it's more God is more of a philosophical question in my opinion, more than a scientific one. But I
So
can't,
it's
like I
a
told you before. Wait, let me just get this out.
sure.
I can't tell you why there is no God. Like I've been on Darth's server before, and I've heard him ask this questions many times before. Like, how is that? How is it that there is no God? And I can't answer that question, like, because I am not sure whether there's a God or not. I can't logically determine that there is no God because I don't know everything. Maybe I'm wrong about what I believe, but my beliefs have justifications, but they're not necessarily knowledge where I know for sure that there is no God.
Yeah, so the reason why that answer doesn't work. Okay, well let me back up. You said I guess only two things that I would really like to address. So you said that it's your opinion. So it's not based on scientific anything, then the scientific method. It's based solely on your opinion. Okay, so if God is true, if God exists, then God would be like a light switch. It would either be in the on or the off position. So by saying you don't know, you are making a claim that there is no God. Because if God is the foundation of everything, then everything would point to that God. And so if you do not know that everything points to that God, then you are saying there is no God. There's no middle ground. And so if you do not have a God and you do not have a scientific method to test these things, then I would have to ask, what is your foundation of knowledge? How can you know anything to be true?
Well, I don't necessarily believe, and I'm not trying to, this is just my opinion, but I don't, just because I say I don't know that there is a God does not mean I'm saying that there is no God, because it's just a lack of knowledge. Do you understand? Like,
Well,
it's
no,
not,
it's not though. So I'm gonna try to make this clear. So if there is a God and God would meet these minimal attributes of God, which are maximally great, everything either points to God or it does not. See, God is all present. He's everywhere. He's all knowing. He's all powerful. That means that you cannot deny God. So like a light switch that can be either on or off, you can either accept or you can deny, but there is no middle ground. There is no I don't know. You see, there's the Christian worldview and then there is the non-Christian worldview. So if I ask you if your life that you lead and your belief system and your flow of logic and everything is consistent with the Christian worldview, you would either say yes or you would say no. And so because you do not say yes, do you say yes?
I
Then
say
your
no.
answer would be no.
Right,
So
right. But okay, can
see,
I have a
I'm not allowing a middle ground because it
but,
is either
can I literally not understand the like, or not that I don't understand, but not have the knowledge to make a determination at this point in time?
no,
How so?
because that is an answer against God.
No,
I
it's not,
guess
because I'm not saying I
Sure.
don't believe in God. I'm not
Well,
saying I deny
sure.
God.
Let me ask you again. Is your worldview the Christian worldview or not?
It is not the Christian worldview.
Okay, so then you've made a decision. You've made a choice. And so I would like to know, since you cannot use the scientific method, so you said, to come to that conclusion, then I would like to know how did you come to the conclusion that there is no God? How did you come to the conclusion that the Christian worldview is not the right worldview?
Okay, now that I can answer. I believe that the problem of evil is probably the most, like, it's probably one of the biggest reasons I left Christianity, because I used to be a young earth creationist when I was in my younger days. So I would say the problem of evil is definitely up there.
Okay, so let me ask you this. If there is no God, how can there be a problem with evil? Evil only exists if the Christian God is true. If the Christian God is not true, then there is no evil. It's like when people worship Satan, right? And they think it's funny. Satan can only be true if the Christian worldview is true. And if the Christian worldview is true, then Satan loses, and they've been
Right, but
deceived
do you
according
understand
to
that
the
if
scripture,
God doesn't
which
exist,
validates Satan. And in that same way, I understand your argument
but
of,
do you understand that?
evil. Sure, but what I'm saying is that argument
Right.
of evil fails because you only have an argument of evil if the Christian worldview is true. And if the Christian worldview is true, then you do not have an argument of evil.
Well, I can do an internal critique, and I can say, if I'm a Christian and this is what I believe, then
Okay?
if evil exists, then the God that I worship would not be worth worshiping because of the evil that exists in the world.
Okay,
So
let me explain why that fails. Because the only way you can come to that conclusion is if you can prove without a doubt that this evil exists for whatever reason, is not ultimately a part of God's greater plan. So if you cannot demonstrate that the evil that exists is ultimately not part of a greater plan, then your argument falls there also.
But the greater
And
plan.
from just one more second, if you are to say that this is an internal critique,
Go ahead.
we
I'm
would not
sorry.
say that. We would not say that within the Christian worldview. So that's not an internal critique.
But do you understand? Like, okay, if evil exists, where's the basis of evil? So, if if you un, if you are doing an internal critique and you say, okay, I'm a Christian now, and then I say, where does evil arise from? Now, evil has to arise from God Himself, right? So I would not
No,
worship that God.
no.
Well, where does evil arise from?
God cannot be both good and evil. That's a contradiction. God can be good, and evil can be the absence of God.
Well, without God, there would be no evil.
So are you okay? If there is not, well, say that again.
Without God, there's no evil.
Say that again.
Without God, there's no evil.
Say that again.
Without God, there's no evil.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And
You understand what you just said, right?
What I'm saying is,
Without God, there is no evil. So now that we've established that many times for everyone to hear, I would like to ask you how, from your worldview, you can know anything to be true. If your mind, if there is no God, then that means nature done it. And if
yes.
your mind and all that you are is just a product of nature, bad things happen in nature. Again, as you said, if there is no God, there is no evil, then what can possibly be wrong? You've just given up all your morality. You've just given up your foundation of truth. And you've given up your foundation to use logic, because logic is not made of material. Logic exists outside of time, space, and matter, just like the laws of physics and everything else. So now that you've given up all of those things according to your worldview, I would like for you to demonstrate how anything can be wrong and how anything can be true.
Well, we can determine what's right and wrong based on our intuition
Okay,
and
let's
logic.
hold
Logic is a
on,
language. I'm
Frank.
sorry. Go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt you, and I would like to give you all the time you want. But
It's
you
fine.
just said that we can determine how something can be based on intuition. You're going to try to establish a sense of morality. So I would like to try to develop that with you right now. So whose intuition ultimately determines what is and is not good or bad, right and wrong, etc.?
We
Whose intuition?
we all have intuitions. We all have different intuitions, and as a
We all
collective unit, we decide what the right and the wrong is as a collective unit.
is
So
that
we get
based on?
together. I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, no, you're right.
Oh, is that based on like geography, or is that like a global consensus, or how does that work?
I
Is
would
it like
say
a localized region, or how does
no,
that
no.
work?
I would say it's a global consensus. We all come to this is just a I mean a lot of people have also have objective morality, but I just go with subjective morality personally, but um I
You
just
can't. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You've given up objective morality. You only have subjective morality now.
right. And I
Objective
fully
morality
understand
only
that.
exists if there is something outside of our human beings to object to when things are wrong. Someone that says
Yeah,
that's
but
something is.
there are a lot of philosophers who are atheists who also hold to an objective morality.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Well, so let's say you're right, and the consensus of the world says the world is overpopulated, and we need to kill off, let's say, I don't know, 2/3 of the Earth's population for the betterment of good. Now, the people that are in power, they are the ones that come to this conclusion, and unfortunately, you are not one of the people in power. So, does your subjective morality, did it just get you killed?
well, I don't and I'm not trying to offend you, but I don't go by hypotheticals. I go by what's in reality.
Well, that's a
And since
reality right now. They're trying to say that actually. They're saying that the Earth is overpopulated, the Gates
I mean,
Foundation.
certain people say the Earth is overpopulated, but most
Hmm.
people, I think, want to retain what they have: their wealth, their money, their, uh, their health.
Yeah,
So
but
most
that
people.
That doesn't answer my
Their
question,
family?
because if you're removed, then all your wealth gets inherited by those that are left behind. So go ahead and answer your question. Let's say that the consensus goes ahead and says, well, we need to remove the population of the earth for the greater good. So what happens now? Does your subjective morality fail?
Um, I guess my personal intuition would be that that's wrong, but I
Well,
can't
but it
convince.
doesn't. That doesn't matter. It's not. It doesn't matter what you think, because you've just given up objective morality, and now everyone just wants to kill off 2/3 of the earth for the better. It's for the better of the people that are going to be surviving. It's not going to be you or me, right? But so again, did your subjective morality fail?
It didn't fail in the sense that I still have my own personal intuition, so I still feel like my morality would be against that.
But did it do any good
Whether or
though?
not the morality of everyone else is different. So,
Yeah, but did it do any good? I mean, you can have your feelings. Everyone
I
has
mean,
feelings, but
but
ultimately, the people that have the power, their feelings are the only ones that matter. And
did
that's
it
why
do any
things
good?
like you.
But do you understand that's a consequence? You're saying, did it do any good? Obviously, the consequences are good if everyone decides to lean a certain way. I mean, it's not good, but what I'm saying is I still have my own subjective morality that I go by that leads me down whatever direction that it leads me down. So, you
And
know,
Sure, but if
Sam,
but if somebody else.
if I may, I'd like to help Frank get where we're coming from. Because Frank, when you say you have this intuition, I think it answers a question like this: when we're asking you about believing in God or not, I don't know if Sam will say this is a good analogy. I think he will. It's sort of like asking you, do you see that it's daytime? Let's say we're standing together in the day, and we ask you if you see that it's daytime. And this is a little bit like when you say you have intuition, you're trying to say, yes, you do see that it's daytime. But when you say you don't know if there's a God, you're at the same time trying to say, no, I don't see the daytime. But I think we really know that you see it, and for some reason you're denying that you see it. I don't
well,
know.
I
Yeah, I
don't,
mean,
I don't
you're
personally
gonna.
see. I guess I don't see the daytime.
Sure.
Sorry.
So you're going to watch this video later, and you're going to see that you, from your worldview, you can't even say that killing off 2/3 of the earth is wrong. You'll say that you don't like it.
Sam, I said I don't.
So
I feel like it's wrong for me.
yeah, you feel like it's wrong, but you can't say that it's wrong from your worldview. Like, I can say that it's wrong, and I can validate why it's wrong from my worldview, but
I can
from your
validate it
worldview,
too.
you
I can say
can't.
my
So,
intuition.
well,
My intuition is that
so
it's wrong.
sure, but but intuitions don't mean anything when there's people in power that have different intuitions, and they wish to do something else and impose
Yeah,
their
but you're
wills
just
on you
talking about the consequence. The
according to
consequence of
their subjective morality.
Yeah, but you're talking about the consequence of subjective morality. This is a consequence, right?
Yes, there's consequences in life.
There's
Sure,
consequences, but I'm
sure.
not. That doesn't take away the fact that there is subjective morality, regardless.
Well, sure,
You understand?
sure. Yeah,
So you haven't
but
disproven this subjective morality. You're simply saying the consequence of it isn't necessarily a good thing, which
sure.
is probably true.
I'm not trying to disprove it. I'm trying to show that it fails. So, for example, I would
It
hope
fails. It
that we
fails. If
all would
people.
agree.
It fails if people do something that is wrong. I guess in terms of
What's wrong?
in my
What's
opinion,
wrong?
in my
No,
opinion,
no. I
that's
mean, what's
what
wrong?
you're asking me. My opinion.
No. I'm like what? Yeah, sure. What I mean, ultimately, from your worldview, what is wrong is only an opinion. So let's say that my opinion, let's say that from here on out I disagree with everything that you say, and I take the opposite position based on my feelings and my opinion. Who's to say what is right and what is wrong from your subjective morality? Do you see? So we can't test God according to the scientific method, but I can show how when you abandon the Christian worldview, what is left is absurd. And that is how I can argue that God is true. So that's how I can demonstrate God. So from your worldview, and I would think that we would all agree that but I will use another extreme case, because in reality, what happened in Germany with Hitler was all legal. And that's where that morality leads. And you could also use eugenics. Are you familiar with eugenics?
Absolutely.
All of those things are consistent with the worldview that is not the Christian worldview. And there's no one to say that those things are objectively wrong. So when you give up the Christian worldview, you're left with absurdity. And that's all I'm trying to demonstrate. Sure, you can have your subjective morality, but in a world where there is no objective morality, where everything is subjective, then it's just feelings and nobody cares.
But do you understand? Like, okay, in my opinion, this is just an opinion I have. Okay,
Frank, I know that you have an opinion, and I know that your intentions are good and all of that. I'm not trying to put you down or try to suggest that you're a bad person at all. But all I'm saying that is nobody cares. Politely, respectfully, nobody cares. Because your opinion is not, unless you are to be extremely arrogant, no offense, your opinion's no different than anyone else's. And if someone else has a different opinion than you, why is yours better?
Well, that's why we talk to each other, and we collectively understand the opinions of everyone, and we determine what's right and wrong based on those opinions. See, if I was a one-man show, it'd be different. But
sure.
Everyone collectively gets together, and we determine what's better for humanity. Like, we determine the speed limit on the road because we want everyone to be safe. We don't go by what one or two people think. We go by what the consensus is.
Sure. And that's what they did in Germany, and they determined that the Jewish people were less than human, and they determined it would be better if they would just remove them. So your logic and your line of reasoning just justified that, whether you want to admit it or not. If you cannot say, and you can't say that those things are objectively wrong from your worldview. And I'm not saying that you agree with it. What I'm saying is your subjective morality fails. That's what I'm saying. And unless you can demonstrate why it doesn't fail, all you're doing is arguing from feelings. You're doing is arguing from feelings and consensus, and none of that matters. Because again, people's feelings can get corrupted unless you can demonstrate why your feelings can't be corrupted, unless you can demonstrate why the consensus is actually doing something that is right. Then ultimately, everything that you say leads back to one of these evil scenarios. And we've seen it happen throughout history.
Are you saying that atheist countries don't survive and thrive? Are you saying, because there are many atheist countries out there, like in Japan, that are atheist countries, and they do just fine with their subjective morality? I'm not sure if they believe in objective or subjective morality, but if they are all subjectivists, they do just fine because they, like I said, they create laws and they follow a standard that they have set up based on everyone's opinion.
What was the guy's name in China? Was it Mao? How many people did Mao kill?
Many. I'm not saying that subjective morality is perfect.
You just gave an example. I just wanted to make sure that you understand what the examples you give.
Sam, I never said it was perfect.
I
never said that the subjective morality is perfect. I'm saying this is what we have, and this is what we use in order to survive. Do you understand?
Sure. Is subjective morality even morality?
Well, it's based on our intuition, and I would say that is morality in the sense of that's where we get our feelings from, and through those feelings is what we develop our morality to be.
Well, I thank God my intuition's not morality.
Right. Yeah, so anyway, that's all. I didn't mean to take up a bunch of time, but yeah.
Hey, I appreciate the conversation, man. I appreciate you having me on. I'm going to go, okay?
Okay, appreciate it. You have a good night.
Hey, Frank?
Yes, sir.
Hey, before you go, I just want to let you know that when it came to killing Christians, Paul the Apostle, he said he was good at it. And while he was out killing those Christians, Jesus loved him. He forgave him anyway. And the reason why I just want to say that to you tonight is because I want you to know that you're not a special case beyond forgiveness. And so God loves you very much. That doesn't do anything unless you accept it. But as you try to draw these Christians into your server there so you can ridicule them, I want you to know that you are not a special case beyond forgiveness.